my main issue with allowing people to do whatever they want. I mean, why don't we allow people to murder people? Why don't we allow people to
We already talked about that. Murder is affecting someone else. Murdering is directly affecting the victim by making them not alive anymore. So this video is just a debate between me and a TPUSA speaker named Kaylee Campbell. She used to be pretty big on TikTok until she got banned, but she also does a lot of speaking stuff for TPUSA. She runs some conservative campaigns. So we debated two things, abortion and what is a woman. This video is the what is a woman section. It's basically what is a woman and why do you think your definition is the definition that we should use. But I was going to get directly into the debate and not have an intro like this or something. But because I was busy doing other things, I couldn't upload the debate right away. So she uploaded it first, and I watched what she uploaded. Let's just say she did not upload the whole debate. She cut it up so much. One of the biggest examples of this is I brought up a bunch of suicide prevention statistics that basically show that if you treat trans people better, if you accept them, that their suicide rates go down like crazy, like insane amounts. And that was the statistics that a major part of my video relied on. And she just cut them out. On whether it's classified as a mental illness or not. So it's distressing people and accepting. Kaylee, you can't delete suicide statistics. That's not how reality works. You can't do it. I'm sorry that you didn't like the statistics because they make you look bad, but you can't just delete reality. And also another thing that she did is every time I'd make a point that she didn't have a response to, in the actual debate, she would just not respond. She would just be like, okay, and then move on, which made her look really not that great in the whole debate. But then in her video, she would just cut those out. She was fully expecting just to cut out any good point I made, which is really sad because even with her editorializing the shit out of the debate, a lot of people in the comments are still in support of me, even though it's her channel. Another thing that she would do is she would often just lie. She repeatedly lied during the debate, just made stuff up. And I didn't counter her on every single one of the lies because some of those lies were kind of inconsequential and they didn't matter that much. So I didn't counter her on them. And the other ones, I didn't know all the facts. But she lied a bunch of times. And the times that I did call out her lies, she would cut that out where I called out her lies, which is also...
They will choose a lifetime of carcinogenic and otherwise toxic cross-sex hormones and likely consider unnecessary surgical mutilation of their healthy body parts as young adults. But overall, can we agree?
It really just shows her hand that she's just kind of dishonest. And the thing is, I had two debates with her. One was on the trans issues, and the other one was on abortion. This video is just the trans issues. I'm going to post another video of my abortion debate. But my trans issue one was the weaker of the two. I had a couple opportunities that I missed. I still absolutely did better than her on the debate. But it wasn't as much of a slam dunk as the abortion debate. So she's definitely not going to post the abortion debate. No matter how much she editorializes that one, she cannot look good because she really just looked really bad. She also, for the thumbnail, used a picture of me on my Instagram where I was specifically looking a little bit ridiculous to try and make me look ridiculous, which is funny. Still, it's of me in the Garfield drip. I'm not embarrassed of my Garfield drip, but the point was to try and make me look ridiculous. But still, she really just made me look swaggy as because that is a swaggy picture of me. Enough of this dumb intro. Let's get into the actual debate where I'm posting the entire debate. I'm not editing it. I'm not cutting it because I actually believe in not being dishonest. So here it is. I'm going to post the abortion debate in a separate video. I'll link it in the description if it's uploaded. I'm going to upload it the day after I upload this one. So if it's uploaded, the link will be in the description. Other than that, hope you enjoy the debate. Oh, this lighting looks good on my stomach. Makes me look like I have abs. Well, I do have abs, but it's skinny abs, so it doesn't really count. You're welcome, guys. But
That makes
so,
sense.
with the debate topics,
Yeah.
I do want to ask you something before we start, on
Yeah.
just a basis of why you believe things and like where your morals come from, in like a general sense. So I'll
Yeah.
start with like myself. So for me personally, the things I believe, the policies I believe in, whatever I push online or in person, the reason I do it and the reason I believe it is because I believe it makes people happier. Like it increases human happiness overall, and by that I mean I think it makes the average person's life better. Like if you put everyone together and the average person, it makes their life better. It makes them happier on average. And so that's basically why I believe stuff. And I think that people can both believe that and still have completely different opinions because they don't agree on what makes people happier. But I want to ask if at least your basis of why you do things or believe things are to increase human happiness, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's basically our same goal. We genuinely care about other people. I know that there's a lot of conservatives out there who don't push that agenda and it doesn't look like they care, but there's also a lot of leftists out there who straight up seem really selfish and stuff. But overall, we're looking out for the goodness of others and trying to help other people make the right decisions for the best of their own like benefit. And I mean, there's a lot of political topics that I could use as an example for that, but my morality derives from my personal religion, which would be Christianity. And I believe that those morals and values are placed here for us to live good lives, help other people be happy, and help people live to the fullest
So
extent and to the best of their ability.
so you just so I just want to make sure. So your morals and beliefs aren't just because like God said so, but you believe God said so because it makes people happier. Because I mean, there are some people who will go with the religious route, basically just say, I know it might like make people's lives worse, but God said so, and God is like the almighty power, so He's just right. So you at least believe that the rules put by your certain belief in God or the rules that you believe God has are to make people happier and not just because God said so?
Well, yes, number one, to answer your question. Two, I don't want to take the religious route on this
Okay.
just because there's a
I
lot
just want
of
to make sure.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because
I didn't want to bring religion into it at
okay,
all.
I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure because I mean, like, an argument on just like, okay, God said so, but like, I don't believe in God, but you believe in God,
right.
is a useless discussion. So I just wanted to make that groundwork, basically,
Yeah, for
as
my
a
own
sense.
personal life, but analyzing like society as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
there's other factors that come into play with that, which is easier to debate and discuss
Because
essentially.
basically, even if God is real, there's a bunch of different people that believe in different gods that have different rules, and the best way is to make a society's rules based on what's best for people. Because if you just make it based on God, then what if someone else says, "Well, my God is what decides what the rules are," and
Right.
then they screw you over? Yeah. Okay. So that's a good framework. Do you want to start with basically on what the like what is a woman and what your definition of a woman is and why you believe it. Do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. So the definition of a woman, since I am one, is a human being that has XY or XX chromosomes, and they can biologically produce children. They have the female reproductive organs, and they have all the reproductive stuff that a woman has. Like woman, it's simple. The XX chromosomes is the basis.
So essentially, what you're saying is, in simple terms, is you believe a woman is a human female.
Well, I believe that there's male, which is
Okay.
XY, and female, which is
So no.
XX, based on
So I just want
science.
to put it down that I understand there's a difference between female and male, and
Right.
I separate it from gender. But your definition of a woman is essentially a human female. Like that's not like a trap or anything. I'm just like
Yeah.
in
It's, I
simple
mean,
terms.
to dumb it down to the
Okay.
simplest aspect of it. Yeah.
Because I also have a simple definition and then a more like complex definition.
Yeah.
And then what is your reason for believing that?
Well, I am a female. So I would like to think that I know what a woman is. On a less broad like spectrum, a woman possesses feminine qualities and I don't know, I'm literally a woman. Like, it's just what we are. It's what we were created as. It's what we're born as.
So, like, argument of that's how it's been, so that's how it should be, kind of? Or, like,
Well, not necessarily that's how it's been, so that's how it should be. That's just what it is, as science says it is.
okay. So I'll start with my definition. So my
Okay.
basic definition is my simple definition is a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. Now, the argument that people often say is that that's circular and that you can't have a circular definition. Well, I don't fully disagree that you can't have a circular definition, because I believe that identities are, by definition, kind of a circular definition. But if you don't want a circular definition, my more complex definition would be someone who identifies with the roles and expectations commonly associated with the female sex. So that would be my longer term, which essentially boils down to a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. Now, the reason that I believe that my definition is the correct one and the one that should be used is basically I believe it has more utility to humans. So my main reason for utility, so I have the side reasons of utilities. I think it's simpler that way because you don't have to go into all the specific things. There's intersex people, there's gray areas, and you don't have to go and like parse out all those gray areas. That doesn't really make sense in a social sense. So I believe it has that utility too. But my main reason that I believe it has more utility is back to where I started, was I think it increases human happiness. I think it makes the average person happier. Specifically, I believe that it makes trans people's lives better while not negatively affecting other people. So I think on average it makes people's lives better. And the reason I believe that is because basically, an undeniable thing is that gender dysphoria is a real thing. Whether you believe in trans women or not, the idea that gender dysphoria, that people have the mental effects of basically where they don't feel comfortable in their own body, they want to be the opposite sex, where they don't feel comfortable with their assigned sex. Like, gender dysphoria is a real thing. You at least admit that's a real mental a real mental thing that happens to people, gender dysphoria.
A mental illness. I think it's classified as a mental illness.
If it is, I'm not 100% sure. If it is, then yeah, that's totally cool. I don't have any. The reason I didn't say mental illness is because I wasn't 100% sure. I'll trust you on whether it's classified as a mental illness or not.
Yeah.
But basically, so gender dysphoria is a real thing. You understand that. And now, if you understand that gender dysphoria is a real thing, you have kind of two options. You can either, one, tell them to get over it and tell them to kind of ignore it and go on with their life in the sex that they were born, or you can basically choose to let people identify how they want to identify. Now, the reason that I believe that people should identify how they want to identify is basically simple statistics. I do have a stat sheet here, so I'll just go through a couple stats. These are statistics. I can link you the studies, but these are all studies that have been like replicated 100 times and have similar results. So trans youth who have the acceptance from one adult have a 39% lower chance of attempting suicide. That's like one adult, doesn't even have to be a parent, any adult have a 39% lower chance of attempting suicide. Trans youth who experience high levels of family rejection because of their identity are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide. So it's distressing people, and acceptance is making them less distressed and less likely to self-harm and hurt themselves. So I'd argue that my definition is better simply because it doesn't kill as many people.
So what would you tell the 41% of all people that identify as trans who've tried to kill themselves? What would you tell them? Because there are 41% that have either attempted suicide or have done that.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, the stats range between like 40 to like 50% normally, on like depends on the study basically. So yeah, if you're trans, you're a lot more likely to commit suicide and attempt suicide. But I would argue that that's because of how we treat trans people. If you look at gay people over time have been more accepted. Not debating whether you think gay people are okay or not, but over time they've been more accepted in societies, and their suicide rates have plummeted. And I've shown in like the stats that I gave you myself that accepting a trans person will lower their suicide rates. It's basically you're going to a person and you're telling them you're not normal, you're bad, and you shouldn't accept yourself, and then wondering why they commit suicide more often. So I would say it's simply a fact of we don't treat them well, so they're more likely to commit suicide.
I would disagree, just because I know that the narrative right now is that the conservative movement and the right as a whole is continuously trying to claim, or yeah, the left is saying that the right is just doing nothing but bullying trans people into killing themselves. That's the number one argument that I hear all the time, which I would have to disagree with.
It's a joke. Your entire mentality based on all of your genders is a joke. You're mentally ill, you're sick, get some medicine, and stay home, stay out of society, because obviously you don't belong here. Then why do we produce and you can't? I hope you wipe out your entire generation. Stay out of society, because obviously you don't belong here.
The left is saying that the right is just doing nothing but bullying trans people into killing themselves. That's the number one argument that I hear all the time, which I would have to disagree with. I don't think it has to do with us not accepting them into society, and it has more to do with their placement in society, because right now, looking at what the movement is trying to do is anything from wanting men in women's bathrooms, wanting children to learn about this stuff in schools, wanting it to be more normalized in TV shows, things like that. And I've said from day one, if you have to normalize something, it wasn't normal to begin with. But to bring back to the whole, it makes people happier, I don't think, and I mean, according to this 41%, and this was found by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention.
No,
and
I
can
agree with
send
your
you,
stats. I'm not disagreeing with your stats.
yeah, I do want to see yours, so you can send those to me.
Yeah.
But that's already 25 times higher than the national average of suicide, and that's only specifically focusing on transgenders in America. And I don't think that their lifestyle makes them happier just because one family member accepted them into society. Because right now, the group of people as a whole are doing way more damage to themselves and their loved ones and the generations below us, aka the children, than doing more good for anybody.
So let me just it just got dark, so I'm gonna turn on extra light real quick, and then I'll respond to that.
Don't worry.
Only one of them works, so I guess I'm gonna just go with one.
We can, there's two paths that we can take. We can either focus on, like I said, there's two paths that we can take on this. There's either the scientific path that we can go first, or we can go more of like the social path of how it's affecting society.
So
I don't know which one you like to focus on.
I mean, you did just bring up the stats thing. I'll just respond to that. So, I mean, yes, trans people are more likely to commit suicide, but I did, as I showed before, that accepting them drastically reduces that. It doesn't reduce it to baseline levels, because there's still people who don't accept them, but accepting them reduces the suicide rates, suicide attempt rates, because you can't really study suicide rates because they're dead as well. But suicide attempt rates go down based on acceptance, and they go up based on families who are hostile towards them. So, I mean, it kind of shows that the suicide being so high is because they aren't treated well. It's not like
argument,
yes.
I mean, that's a good point. The argument behind that, though, could be made about anything. If I think a certain way and I go surround myself with people who also think a certain way on anything, whether it's transgenderism or, like, I don't know, a favorite color or a favorite food. If you go surround yourself with people who view and see things the way that you do, they're going to essentially be put in this like ideology and mindset that it's okay because they have people around them telling it that it's okay. But that doesn't make it okay in society.
So you're basically saying that having people that accept you will make you less likely to attempt suicide, but you're saying it shouldn't matter because it's not okay. Why isn't it okay? Why is it not okay? What makes it wrong?
Well, it's harmful to them and to everybody else, but I will say that it's giving like a false narrative of comfort If you kill somebody and I tell you, oh, hey, it's okay, like, that doesn't make it okay. Like, you can have the comfort and reassurance from anybody around you, but at the end of the day, just because somebody told you something's okay doesn't make it okay
But
in morality
there's
standard.
a difference between killing someone and being trans. Killing someone, you're directly hurting someone else. Being trans, you're only living how you want to be. You're only affecting yourself. You're only choosing your own life. You're not affecting anyone else negatively. If you were to punch someone, you're hurting someone else. Being trans, wearing a dress, if you're assigned male at birth and you want to be a trans woman, wearing a dress isn't hurting anyone else. That's just someone expressing themselves freely.
Well, it would hurt my children if I was walking on the street and I walked past some 6'5" man wearing a dress. And it would also hurt me if I walked into the bathroom and I got raped by some guy who put on a dress in the bathroom, which is a big concern that has happened in the past, is that a lot of the whole going back to 2016 when Obama decided to allow men and women to go into whichever bathroom that they wanted to. That's been a thing since then. And there have been a lot of cases where men have snuck into women's bathrooms due to them identifying as women and then assaulting, raping, or attacking women for no reason.
So, first of all, a child seeing a man in a dress isn't harming the child, but
It is. It is harming the child.
but to your point on seeing someone in fully dressed clothing that is like a dress, so basically just having a shirt that is longer than a regular shirt, a child seeing a man in a shirt that is longer than a regular shirt doesn't harm that child in any way. But
What kind of dress are you talking about? We can talk about how many different types of dresses there are, but
I mean, so to
I
your
don't think it
point
matters.
on the bathroom stuff, first of all, you think that there's some impenetrable force field that doesn't let people into a woman's bathroom that don't identify as a woman? Do you think there's something like stopping a guy? So a guy that's going to rape someone, he's already committing a crime that is like can be life in prison, like 20 years life in prison, depending on like what the rape is. So he's already committing a massive crime. I don't think he's going to care about the extra fine that is walking into a woman's bathroom if he is a guy.
Couldn't we use that same argument on a completely unrelated topic of gun control? Just saying, if that's the mindset that we're going with and the logic that we're going to use in this argument, couldn't we literally say that, bad people are going to get the guns either way, so why make gun control? That's just like the logic that I've seen behind a lot of these arguments that I feel like people from the left pick and choose which whenever they want to use it.
So specifically for guns, I'm actually not directly anti-gun. I think that if hypothetically in a fairy world, we could have a world where we just remove all guns from America, I think that would be a good thing, because then you wouldn't need guns to defend yourself from guns. But we don't live in that world. We have infinite amount of guns in America. We're not getting rid of them. So right. For specifically guns, I think that the main thing for guns is that the main issue with guns is people killing themselves. It makes it easier to kill yourself, and it also makes it you're able to kill a lot of people more quickly is the main issue with guns. If we probably agree more on gun control than like most issues. Basically, I think that if you have stuff like a wait period, which stops people from like buying a gun to kill themselves, or like drastic actions, just like 72 hours, you buy a gun, you wait 72 hours, you get a gun, and then it will probably reduce suicides and stuff like that. And stuff like, I think background checks are fair, but I'm not like someone that thinks that you should ban guns, but I do think that the difference is that you have the gun makes it so you can do harm a lot easier, while a bathroom door there's not much stopping someone from committing a sexual assault. That's just a simple bathroom door, while a gun, like having an AR, if compared to a knife, you can kill 50 people in a minute rather than like 3 people in a minute with a knife. So I do think that those are different arguments, even though I'm not necessarily directly anti-gun.
Right. Okay. So with the bathroom door situation, like you said, if somebody's going to rape somebody, they're going to do it regardless. But encouraging it / allowing it and being like, you know what, right now it's in agreement that
Who's
men
allowed
have
rape?
one bathroom. What?
Who's allowed rape though? Like no one's allowed rape.
I'm not saying elaborate. I
Okay.
meant like when we were talking about the scenario of a man going in there regardless,
Mhm.
whether it was a man or a trans man or whatever. With that logic, we're basically saying, you know, right now, men go in one bathroom, women go in the other bathroom, and that's how it is. Now we're like, you know what? You guys can go into whichever bathroom you want, whatever. It's kind of just knowing the consequences of what's going to happen if we're like, you know what? Yeah, if you're a guy, go in a girl's bathroom, whatever. Knowing the consequences of what's going to happen if men enter women's bathrooms and then being like, well, we're just doing it to make other people happy. Like, we know that somebody's probably going to go in there and rape somebody, but now we're making it easier for them. And I don't think that benefits your logic of making the world a happier place.
So specifically with the men who you're saying are pretending to be women or even trans women, I think that you can both be a trans woman or a man pretending to be a woman to get into a bathroom. I think both those things are plausible. So there's been like almost no cases of that. But the thing is, something that is statistically more likely is if a trans woman does go into a man's bathroom, they are a lot more likely to be hurt because men view trans women as a threat. They view it as like some sort of attack on their masculinity. They're more likely to get beaten up. They might be raped, not raped in like a sexual way, but like raped to like assert power or like embarrass or humiliate. Trans women going in men's bathroom is a lot more dangerous statistically than a trans woman going into a woman's bathroom for the other woman. So the trans woman is a lot more likely to get hurt going into a man's bathroom.
Right. Sorry. Sometimes it's hard to keep up because there's just so many. Like, it just, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So rewinding back to, I wanted to read you this from the American College of Pediatricians.
All right.
Talking about how this is considered child abuse, because my main focus on the whole transgender issue is it being pushed on children, which is like one of the niche things that I like to talk about when it comes to this. And so this says conditioning children into believing that a lifetime of chemical and surgical impersonation of the opposite sex is normal and healthful is child abuse. Endorsing gender discordance as normal via public education and legal policies will confuse children and parents, leading more children to present themselves to gender clinics where they will be given puberty-blocking drugs. This, in turn, virtually ensures that they will choose a lifetime of carcinogenic and otherwise toxic cross-sex hormones and likely consider unnecessary surgical mutilation of their healthy body parts as young adults.
So is that cited in any studies or resources? Because I looked up American College of Pediatricians. They're advocacy group. So they're essentially a think tank that has one employee. So I mean, I'm not gonna say that it's necessarily directly a non-trusted source, but it specifically has a conservative political agenda, and also so I would like to see like a study that they're based in rather than just them saying something.
I can find something for you. But overall, can we agree that encouraging young children to, like, what side are you on when it comes to encouraging children, which is like what, 13 and below, to mutilate themselves based on what they think they are at a young age?
So,
because I can tell you when I was young, I wasn't like the girly girl type. I'm not really the girly girl type now, but I definitely was not the girly girl type back then. If my parents had changed me to a boy based on the sports that I played or the toys that I played with, I would probably hate my life now.
so the thing is, like, nowhere in America are children getting like genital mutilation, like what you say, genital
That's not
mutilation.
true. That's not true.
Their bottom surgery is not a thing. Maybe like a few cases with a 17-year-old, but find me a case where a 13-year-old is getting bottom surgery. And
right now in Texas, Jeff Younger, who just ran for state representative, his ex-wife took their son, he's 8 years old, and she's currently trying to transition him into a girl because she full-heartedly believes that this 8-year-old child is a girl, even when the child himself is like, I'm not a girl. And
I'm not talking about the
lost
morals.
the case.
I'm not talking about the morals here. Has that 8-year-old had bottom surgery? Have they changed the genitals of that 8-year-old? Because no doctor would.
Trying to do
no
that.
doctor would, because you literally can't. There's like actual like you physically don't have enough penis material to make a vagina. It is literally impossible to do it. So there's no way that they're making an 8-year-old like bottom surgery. And beyond that, we have really stringent restrictions for getting hormone treatment, and hormone treatment normally doesn't start until later. I don't think that children should be getting bottom surgery. I don't think that young teens or children should be getting hormone replacement treatment. I do think that they can get puberty blockers, because puberty blockers simply delay puberty. There is some cases where the only effects from puberty blockers are they have slight effects on height. Like they can like maybe take an inch off if you're a guy, if you're like a male, or they can delay bone density growth. So you're eventually, when you get older, you'll have like full bone density, but it'll go a little bit into adulthood before you have full bone density. So puberty blockers don't have any other long-term effects, and they're fully reversible. So I think that puberty blockers are fine, which lets kids have more time to mentally mature before they decide whether they want to get hormone treatment or not. So I don't think that you should be giving children hormone treatment or genital reassignment surgery, but I don't think that's happening either.
Right. Well, that's the narrative that us on the right, the conservatives, are seeing being pushed from the left. That's why we get so passionate about these topics, because that's quite literally what the agenda is that's being pushed right now, is that they want children to be able to transition as young as 8, 7, 6, 5 years old. And I know maybe that's more on the extreme left side, but things like that, if we can both sit here and agree that that's not okay, then why aren't we doing anything to stop it?
Because it's not happening is the thing. Like, you might find a few Twitter idiots that are saying that you should give 8-year-olds like genital reassignment surgery, but you might find a single politician. But even if you look at the Democrats, I'm not a Democrat myself, but if you look at the Democrats, not a single Democrat is saying that you should have children get reassignment surgery for bottom surgery or top surgery. And I don't think there's many legitimate, credible leftists that are either saying that that you should be able to, what you're saying, genitally mutilate children. I don't think anyone's saying that. You might be able to find a few edge cases, but that is not the majority. That is not the mainstream. Those are like people that are what I would be considered counterproductive and harmful. But I don't think I know that that is not a mainstream push to have that happen. If that was happening, if there was a legitimate mainstream push to happen, if there was legislation that allowed that, I would be against that legislation. But there isn't. So instead, I would be fighting for the acceptance of things like puberty blockers, or more acceptance of trans people, especially when they're adults, or social acceptance. So like social transitioning, like if someone who's a boy says, I want to wear a dress and be a girl, accepting that boy to do that and let him do that, because there's no long-term medical consequences. I'm for that. I'm for letting kids socially transition if they want to, not forcing them, but letting them. But if there was actually a push for the massive medical transition of kids, then I would be against that.
I would say I agree with you because I don't think it's like a nationwide thing that they're trying to push, but there are cases just like Jeff Younger's son, which if they were to, because I mean, listen, I live in Texas. I don't like Greg Abbott. There's a lot of people, especially on the right, who don't even like Greg Abbott. And I know the left does not like him either, or anybody in the middle. But with the legislation that you're talking about, they are actively like in the court cases that Jeff Younger was fighting for his son, his 8-year-old son, to get him back, to put him back in schools, to have a normal life. Like this woman, who is probably more on the extreme side, has been trying to push for the actual medical surgery. That's just one case that I can personally tell you about. And I know that they're not going to just throw on the news a bunch of different cases about kids medically being mutilated, but
I don't think
it's happening. It's just not common.
I don't think there's a single case of someone I would say under 15, or even rare below under 18, maybe like 17 or 16, but below 15, I don't think there's a single case of a bottom surgery being done on a child.
That's good, and it should stay that way.
Okay, and I agree.
Okay, so I want to ask you something about, so would you consider yourself a feminist?
Yeah.
Okay, that means that you are for women's rights. You want women to have control over their bodies. You believe women can have empowerment and be, boss bitches and all of that kind of stuff, right?
And would you consider yourself a feminist?
No.
Okay, so yes, I would consider. So your arguments are about feminists, but you're not a feminist. Just to like.
Yeah, well, because I wanna see your perspective on this. So if feminism is defined as women being women and women feeling empowered by being proud that they are women, then why is it okay, or maybe you disagree, that we allow men to be trans women to come in and take over women's sports, want to claim, I guess I can't wrap my head around why a man would go want to claim to be a woman, and then like it invalidates the feminist movement for me, because at the end of the day, we're kind of just like warping manhood and womanhood to one unisex type world where anybody can identify as anything, and it's kind of ripping away everything that it would be. Because I would call myself a traditional feminist based on the first wave of feminism. But after that, when things started getting out of control and they kept wanting more and more and more, now it's come to a point where men can be women and there's nothing left special about being a woman.
So, the trans athletes thing is a separate topic that we can get into later, but specifically going on the trans women destroying womanhood. So the reason that I think that's ridiculous is because you can be a woman, a cis woman, and a trans woman. They're both women. They're different types of women, but at the same time, they can both be women while not invalidating the other person's womanhood. If your womanhood is based on exclusion, I feel like you're really don't have a strong belief in the power of your womanhood. While a trans woman currently, I don't know, science might advance, can't give birth, that doesn't make them not a woman. You still have that thing, like if you care very much about giving birth, then you have that still, and a trans woman being a woman doesn't take that away from you. So why would and so I consider myself a libertarian in the sense of I believe in maximizing people's freedom. So I think that people should be able to do what they want. So that's why I don't think the argument of you're degrading like a standard and like by letting trans women be women is legitimate, because I think that whatever a standard is doesn't matter if that standard is making people's lives worse, specifically trans people's lives worse. But no, why is a trans woman also being a woman make a cis woman less of a woman?
Okay, so rewind back to when you said it shouldn't be based on exclusion, which if a trans woman and a cis woman want to identify as the same thing, it's quite literally taking away what a normal woman can do, which is give birth, have a period, be able to breastfeed. Like there are things that women, as I am a woman, able to do as a woman that you cannot do as a man.
So
Now,
with that
sorry, my cat
specifically,
is
I mean,
climbing
yeah,
up the wall.
there's stuff that a cis woman can do that a trans woman cannot do, and a trans woman being a woman does not magically take away your ability to give birth. So
That
you're saying
doesn't make them a woman, though. We can rewind back to what a woman is, which is somebody with XX chromosomes who's able to give birth, grow babies inside of them. That is a woman. And the
Okay, what
trans
about
woman
intersex
over
people?
here cannot physically give birth, cannot physically create milk to nurture their child, cannot have a period.
So
That is not the same thing.
what about women on menopause? What about women who are infertile? What about women who I'm talking about cis women who are intersex? Where I don't exactly I'm not a biologist, but there are women who can have an XX chromosome and a Y chromosome too, or along those lines, where they don't have that exact XX chromosome, but we still consider them a cis woman because that's how biology works. The thing is that the definition of a woman, there is we decide what a woman is based on what's useful to us, and there's
No.
you don't think that we decide that words, you don't think words are for our use. What are words for? What's the purpose of words?
We don't decide what a woman is based on usefulness.
Yeah, we do. Every word is based on the usefulness of that word.
Right.
We make words
But
to be useful to us.
yes, but a woman is a biological term described to call somebody a woman. There are things that make you and I different. Just because I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, I'm a man, does not make me a man.
I
at
agree,
all.
and there's also things that make brunettes and blondes different. So I mean, like
Exactly.
but they're still both women.
Right. But we're talking about reproductive organs that are inside of your body, and your entire body is created completely differently based on biology and based on science that is so heavily backed up until it doesn't agree with the narrative of an argument. And biological sex as a whole cannot change, regardless if somebody takes a penis, turns it inside out,
We're
and
not
makes it
talking
a
about
vagina.
biological sex, though. We're talking about gender. I mean, if you're talking about science, currently pretty much every scientific institution, specifically medical and mental health institutions, they all agree that trans women are women, and that trans women exist, trans men exist. They all agree with that statement. So if you're going to like the authority of science, then you would lose on that.
But we're going on the authority of how somebody feels. If I wake up tomorrow and I want to identify as a brunette, does that make me brunette?
I'm right now going through this video just to like quickly edit it. Not like the actual debate, but just like make it so I can upload it to YouTube. And when I'm going through this part, I realized she wasn't always a blonde. She dyed her hair. She used to be a brunette. I've been looking at old videos of her to like basically put in this video to like give context. And she used to be a brunette. She dyed her hair. Like she's like, well, I can't just wake up one morning and be a brunette. She literally woke up one morning and decided to be a blonde. She's trans hair color. And I completely fucking forgot that she used to be a brunette. How could I forget in the moment? It was the perfect dunk. I missed the perfect dunk. I missed it. The perfect dunk. I missed the perfect dunk.
gender is
Why
an
not?
identity.
It's what I look like.
It's not you don't identify as, well, you can identify as a brunette. You can be like a brunette and like not identify as a brunette, and it's like non-important factor in your life. But it is something that is based on brown hair or blonde hair. Now,
Right.
brunettes,
And
the
gender
thing,
is based
but now,
on
no, listen,
female
before,
reproductive
let me finish on
organs
that really quick.
and
So,
male productive
what if
organs.
someone has like brownish blonde hair? Do you consider them a brunette or do you consider them a blonde?
That's
So we decide what's a brunette and what's a blonde based on just whatever we want to decide based on what's most useful to us to make that distinction. So there's always gray lines, and we decide what is what. We categorize things based on utility. And basically you're saying that your categorization is correct because your categorization is correct. You're not actually giving a reason why you should consider why you should basically make gender be the same thing as sex. So gender and sex are two different words for a reason. Why should we use them the same when there's other utilities that are more useful of not using it in the way that you want it to be used? Why?
Because we don't get to take words and just change them around to mean whatever we want to mean. I mean, did you see how they just changed the definition of a girl in the dictionary after however many years it's been that we've had it the same? Did you say based?
Yeah, I'm saying based. Do you think we're online? We're online right now. I'm going to use online terminology. But anyways, yeah, you can totally change words when a word no longer becomes.
Change words.
Okay, let me give you an example. Pluto.
Okay.
Pluto used to be a planet. Pluto used to be defined as a planet, but I think in 2006 or 2008 they found out that there's a bunch of dwarf planets that are like Pluto. That have the same, that are almost exactly like Pluto, that exist way beyond the other planets like Pluto does, and there's hundreds of them. So the definition of planet, Pluto being defined as a planet, would no longer be useful to us. So in 2000, it was 2006 or 2008, I'm just going to assume 2006.
That doesn't change the meaning of the word.
In 2006, we changed the definition. We changed the definition of a planet to exclude Pluto because the definition no longer had the usefulness that it did before we found out about the bunch of other dwarf planets that are like Pluto. That's a hard science. But that doesn't
change what it is. That doesn't change the definition.
It literally is.
Let's say all the planets are right here, right? Mm-hmm. Mercury, Venus, whatever. All of them are right here. They took Pluto and they were like, yeah, this isn't a planet anymore. That doesn't mean that the rest of these aren't planets.
Yeah, they expanded so they took the categorization and they shrunk it because the large categorization no longer had use. For women, you have the category of women, and I'm saying increasing it because the usefulness of the smaller categorization doesn't have the same utility as the larger categorization. You can change words. We change words all the time. Words are simply there to be useful to us. That's we create words and we can decide how we define them. And I'm saying that my definition is better, and you're saying that your definition is correct simply because that's what the definition is. You've given no argument why your definition is good or correct.
I've told you multiple reasons as to why the definition of a female means a female based on science and our bodies, and on a social standpoint, why there are differences between men and women, and that's why we call them men and women. And just because I or somebody else wakes up and they're like, I'm a man because I said I'm a man, that doesn't physically make them a man. That's where the whole mental illness things come back in, because we talked about that in the very beginning. We defined the gender dysphoria as a mental illness, which it is, and just because you say something doesn't make it right. And when we want to bring in the whole, oh, you believe this because you believe the world will be a happier place, and I sit here and tell you some guy over here claiming he's a female doesn't make the world a happier place, and we can't sit here and go over words and say that they can mean whatever they want to mean just because we feel a certain way inside our brains.
Words mean what society decides the words mean. That's literally what words are. Words are whatever we decide they mean. Words constantly change over time. You at least admit that you can change a word, that words do change, and that we change words when they're no longer useful to us. We get rid of words, we add words, we change words when they're no longer useful to us. Do you at least understand that?
Yeah, but you're claiming that the word girl or the word woman can just magically change based on how we feel as a society, because a group of people have decided that they don't like the way or the definition of girl, and suddenly it just can't mean what it's supposed to mean. It has meant for our entire lives.
Pluto for entire people's lives was a planet, and a group of people decided that Pluto is no longer a planet because it being a planet is not useful. So they changed the definition.
That doesn't change what it is.
Yes, it does. Pluto is no longer a planet. So it does. It did change how we define it. The word woman is No, it doesn't actually change Pluto. Pluto doesn't magically, the properties of Pluto don't change. As calling a trans woman a woman doesn't change the properties of a trans woman. This is simply categorization. I'm not saying that it's some magical thing that will make a trans woman a cis woman. I'm not saying it's going to biologically change a trans woman's chromosomes, but I'm saying that because it's a categorization that we decide, that we can also decide to make that categorization include trans women. And I think that that's better because trans women being included in the women category makes them commit suicide less.
So it doesn't. It literally does not.
Do you want me to read the stats again? There's hundreds of stats.
You can send me them.
Yeah, okay.
It's literally harming. If we want to care about other people and we want to care about everybody's mental health and make sure people aren't killing themselves, then what is your take on real women and the effects that these trans women are coming in and having on real women? Like, do you care about how, I'll use myself as an example, or I could use any of my female friends who are or could be targeted by any trans woman who decides to come in and take over a job or take over a swimming race. We can use swimming race.
If you wanted, if the trans sports is a separate issue that I have a more nuanced take on than you expect. But if you're specifically talking about like work, I mean, a man can take over a woman's job. A man can just walk into a woman's restroom and rape someone. There's no magical thing that changes anything. Like I said, it doesn't change any physical attributions about a person. It's just how we identify them and categorize them. And also, let me send you the studies. So you can respond to that. I'll just find the studies real quick.
Yeah, with trans women wanting to identify as women, if we can just change up words and make new words seem to fit whatever we want them to be, why can't trans women go find a new word to identify as? Why do they want to so badly claim to be a woman? If we're asking the question, what is a woman? Why do they want to be a woman so bad if we can't even define what a woman is? Although a woman is a human being that has biological differences from a man, because there are only two differences, and you either have a penis or you either have a vagina, and there's literally nothing else other than that unless you end up with both, which the intersex people are the gray area that often gets either thrown into the argument or misconstrued. You quite literally only have the male reproductive organs and the female reproductive organs. And with those being only two things, you're one or the other. And for trans women to want to come in and be like, oh, I'm a woman because I said so, that doesn't make them a woman based on how they feel. We've been over this.
You're talking about reproductive organs. Again, I could say, well, what if they have bottom surgery? Then they no longer have those reproductive organs. And there's always
still biologically doesn't make them a woman. If I go turn my vagina inside out and make it a penis, that doesn't make me a man.
I would agree with you that to an extent that you can't fully change your biological sex. I would argue that there's a difference between gender and sex. Sex is basically there's sexual characteristics that decide sex, and you can change certain aspects of your sexual characteristics. I'm neutral in that argument. Whether you would consider a trans woman, I can understand the argument that some people make that a trans woman is partially female and partially male, and I can also understand the argument that a trans woman's still a male but still a woman. I can understand both those arguments, but that's irrelevant to the point that sex and gender are different. I do agree that chromosomes are real. Penises are real, but gender doesn't have to be correlated to those two things. Well, actually, it is correlated. Right? I said that wrong.
Based on a feeling.
I said that wrong. It's correlated to those two things, but it doesn't have to be connected to those two things. So there's the correlation, but it doesn't have to be those two things, because a penis isn't gender and a vagina isn't gender. Chromosomes aren't gender. Those are sexual characteristics. Gender is a social concept.
There are two genders. There are literally two that we've had our entire lives. And you can bring up the Pluto thing again for the third time, but we have quite literally had male and female. Would you consider those genders amongst the other 54, which I remember in the video we talked about, or I had mentioned that there's like this little graph that has all of the different genders on it, with the one arm being a male and the rest of the body being a female. thanks, but I can pull up the picture for you because I know there's some that are just like straight up memes because they have some pretty funny ones on there.
I think those
But
memes
they're
are hilarious.
actually-
I agree. I used one
Yeah,
in my
yeah, yeah.
video.
They are claiming that there are more than two genders, which I would assume that you also think that there's more than two genders. And it just, I mean, you can go off the rails when it comes to this because
Sure, why not?
I mean-
I just think that people should be able to do what they want as long as they aren't hurting other people. And if people want to identify as a tractor, granted that is a straw man. No one actually identifies as a tractor. But I will take this point to the extreme.
I'll identify as a tractor
Okay,
after
sure,
this.
sure. If you want to identify as a tractor, then I don't care. You can identify as a tractor. And if you are still a functioning member of society and do everything that you need to do, you live a normal, happy life, and you just call yourself a tractor, I really do not care. It does not affect me. And if that makes you happy, I will let that make you happy because I believe that people should be able to do what they want. And I believe that I think that people aren't perfect in deciding what makes them the happiest, but I don't think that anyone else is better at deciding what makes someone happy than themselves. And even if other people were better at deciding what makes someone happy than themselves, the world works on incentives and people aren't incentivized to make other people happy. So even in a world where other people knew better for other people, I would still not like that because I don't think that people have the incentives to make other people happy. But I also believe that people's that you're the best judge of what makes you happy is yourself, even if you're not perfect at it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is a lot of this is just based on emotions and wanting everybody to hold hands, stand in a circle, and sing Kumbaya,
Yes.
and that's how we have a functioning society.
Well, I mean, not hold hands and sing Kumbaya. I mean, that would be a nice society. I like Kumbaya. It's a very nice song. But if we could have a society where people would hold hands and accept each other, yeah, I think that would be a better society. I know that you're putting it as an extreme. We're never going to have a perfect society, but I do think that just holding hands and accepting each other would be a nicer society. So why not advocate for it?
Right. Because, of course, we can all make up perfect worlds, and they will
I
honestly
just said we
never
can't make a
exist.
perfect world, but we can work towards making a better world.
Right, but that doesn't include manipulating people and confusing them to think that they are one thing when they are not. And going back to, like, my main issue with allowing people to do whatever they want. I mean, why don't we allow people to murder people? Why don't we allow people to
We already talked about that.
rob
Murder
stores?
is affecting someone else. Murdering is directly affecting the victim by making
So-
them not alive anymore. They're completely
okay, so
removing
what
their
if
happiness.
what if I go break into Target down the street? That's not affecting anybody else.
Yeah, it
But
is.
why don't we allow robberies to happen?
yeah,
Why
it is.
can't I go rob a bank?
Breaking in the Target is absolutely affecting the store
I
owners.
didn't attack anybody,
Yes, it is.
so I'm not
It
bothering
absolutely
anybody.
it's forcing the store owners to it's forcing the people that work there to have to clean it up. It's stealing from other people, so it makes it so that they you're taking directly from someone else. You are negatively affecting someone else. Now, I don't think that stealing from Target is on the same level as murdering someone, but you're still negatively affecting someone else. So that's a kind of a faulty argument because, again, calling yourself a woman is not affecting anyone else. That's only what you call yourself. But murdering someone or breaking into Target is affecting someone else.
Right. Okay. Well, me going and robbing a place, whatever. We won't go there. But I will say that, again, you claim that transgenderism doesn't harm anybody else, although these people have families. These people have, they may be married, they may have kids, they may have parents, and let's say said person wants to transition after they've been a girl their entire life. They're like, you know what, I'm 32 and I want to be a man. That does directly affect the people who do love and care about them. And I was trying to find this thing right here.
So you're saying that I'm talking in feelings, and now you're like, well, someone's parents' fifis can get hurt if they decide that they're a woman now.
Well, you were just talking about how you like transgenderism and you want it to be accepted in society because you care and you want people to be happy. But in reality, the people that want to transition everybody else in their life, regardless if they accept it or not, are not going to be happy. It doesn't make, and it is affecting other people.
Okay, so then
it's directly affecting the people involved
we
in
teach
this
those people
person's
to be
life.
more accepting so they aren't upset and they don't get their fifis hurt
Why
anymore.
should everybody else have to change and conform to one person's
You're not changing.
mental illness?
You're not changing at all. You're simply letting that person be how they want to be. I mean, you can paint a picture. Like, I can paint a smiley face and frame it, and it gets hung up in a museum, and some person walks by that smiley face, and for some reason they don't like that smiley face, and it makes their day worse because, I don't know, they don't like the color yellow when it's a yellow smiley face. So that's essentially what you're saying. If you do an action that isn't meant to hurt anyone else's feelings, and it doesn't have to hurt the other person's feelings, then you can't say, oh no, it's hurting other people. There's a difference between doing a direct action like stabbing someone and, I don't know, whistling and someone not liking your whistling and getting upset about it, or choosing what your gender is and someone not liking it and getting upset about it. They can simply stop. Like, you can't unstab yourself, but you can start accepting trans people.
So should the person stop whistling, or should the person not get angry about it?
The person should not get angry about the whistling. If the person, well, actually, it depends if they're being a public nuisance and doing it in a theater or something. There's a difference between that. But
right.
no.
So what about transgender people being a public nuisance and wanting to push their ideologies onto everybody else when it has not been normalized and should not be normalized? Why should everybody else conform to the minority group of people who are, by definition, mentally ill based on gender dysphoria?
So, the thing is that if you're talking about being a public nuisance, I would strongly disagree with that. But even under that case, what you're asking, so I'm not saying that you should send people to jail for incorrectly gendering someone. I'm advocating for the fact that we should, as a society, try to strive towards making people accepting of other people's gender. I'm not talking about forcing anyone to do anything. But at that same extent, using someone's correct pronouns and calling, it was specifically for trans women, take a trans woman, using she, her pronouns and calling her a woman takes essentially zero effort. But her not being accepted as a woman increases her suicide rates by 3 times. If
encouraging her mental illness increases her suicide rates, according to the 41% that try to kill themselves.
So you realize
they either grow up and they regret their decision, or they have just been so unhappy with themselves they try to find true happiness in changing their identity, when in reality they do not find happiness.
So the thing is, if being trans is mental illness, I'm not 100% sure, but I'll assume it is. Being trans is mental illness. Mental illnesses have treatments, and the scientifically understood treatment for having gender dysphoria, being trans, is social acceptance, social and sometimes medical transitioning. That is a scientific accepted treatment for that mental illness. So, and that is a treatment that has the best outcomes. So why are you advocating against treatment? Sure, it's a mental illness, but I'm advocating for a treatment for that mental illness, and you're trying to say, don't.
Well, because the rates of these people going through with these transitions that are permanent and doing self-harm to their own bodies, whether it's mutilation to their genitals or things like that,
removing an
the
appendix
rate
to self-harm,
of them regretting that decision when they reach a comprehensive age to understand what they've just done
is minuscule.
Is very high.
Regretting. So again, we're not advocating for small children transitioning, but if we're talking about adults, because you also don't think that trans adults are trans women. So if we're talking about adults here, to not bring the trans children issue into it, the regret rates are minuscule, and of their tiny percentage of people end up detransitioning. It's less than 10%, but I think it's 1%. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 100% sure it's less than 10%. I think it's 1%. And of that 1%, most of the people who detransition are people who say they're detransitioning because of social pressures. Most people that end up detransitioning don't detransition because they don't believe in their identity. It's because social pressures are forcing them to detransition. So the people who are unhappy, I think the level of unhappiness with trans surgeries or trans treatments is lower than pretty much any other surgery. So like the people regret surgeries when they have a surgery. Like even if someone like removes a kidney, they might regret that kidney being removed even if they needed to remove it. And I think the regret percentage rate of trans surgeries is lower than the average surgery regret rate.
I can't get behind the mindset of a mental. I don't want to. I'm trying to find a different term other than mental disorder, or mental illness. With that, I'm trying to find the correlation between physically altering your body to change a chemical imbalance in your brain when that doesn't fix the root cause of the problem.
It's not a chemical imbalance. The chemical imbalance theory has been pretty disproven in psychology, but
it's just a mindset.
It's not a mindset. Like
think a certain way.
So the thing about the brain is we don't know much about the brain. Like
right.
we don't know a ton about the brain, but whatever is happening, they are mentally in that state, and the best way statistically to make this person live the most successful and happy life is to let them be who they want to be, and socially and sometimes medically affirm their gender has the best outcomes. So because I believe in doing the thing that has the best outcomes, I believe in basically letting people transition if they want to, and affirming trans women as being women. So that's pretty much my belief. I think now at this point we're going in circles, so if you want to move on to the other one.
Well, I do have a question for you. So let's take the logic of letting people do what they want so it makes them happy. How do you feel about the whole thing behind the minor attracted persons and
you're harming
the pedophiles?
Minors. You're harming
basically,
minors.
You're harming minors? Okay.
Yeah, so that's...
But what if it makes the pedophiles happy? I mean,
but it hurts
you want
the
to
minor.
claim...
A trans woman transitioning is not... it could only be hurting themselves, while a adult raping a child would be hurting the child.
Nobody said anything about rape. Nobody said anything about rape. Minor attract the definition that they've chosen for calling a pedophile a minor attracted person.
Any adult sleeping with a child is rape. I consider any adult sleeping with a child being rape. So
nobody said anything about sleeping with them. Quite literally, just the fact that they're trying to be more accepted by claiming that they are attracted to minors, which is something we can both agree is wrong. I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just taking the same logic as...
So I get your question.
They think it's okay. They think that at the end of the day, them claiming that they're accepted more into society as attracted to children, they can go to bed happy at night. Where's the difference with that?
So the difference is, the endpoint of a trans person is them transitioning. The endpoint of a minor attracted person would being accepted would be them sleeping with minors. That would be the endpoint. As in the case of people have the mental illness where their pedophiles exist. Pedophiles that don't act on their actions exist. They have that mental illness. It's a hard mental illness to deal with. We should not accept them as like normal because their endpoint harms other people. But at the same time, we should advocate these people to go to treatment. There is a consensus that pedophiles, people that are attracted to minors, the best treatment for them is therapy. There's different treatments that you do. There's scientifically accepted treatments for people like that. You can't completely get rid of it, but you can minimize any threat of harm or how much you think about it or whatever. There's treatments for it. And the same thing for trans people, there are treatments for it, and the medically accepted treatment is transitioning. So the thing is that the endpoint hurts minors. For trans people, if you think that it's self-harm, even then it's only hurting the trans person and not anyone else. That's the difference between it. So the endpoint hurts someone else while the other endpoint does not hurt someone else.
So we shouldn't care if it doesn't hurt anybody else, but it's
no
them hurting themselves.
I don't think it's them hurting themselves, but again, I believe that people's are best at deciding what's best for themselves. Even if they might hurt themselves, some people might hurt themselves, but I think that the person who is best at deciding what makes you happy is you. Unless you are in a completely like when you are in at least a stable state of mind. Unless if you're completely manic and completely like in a mental breakdown, that's different. Then you're not making the best choice for you. But when people get trans surgeries, they're not in a mid-mental breakdown. But other than that, I believe that people are best at deciding what's for themselves, even if they're not the perfect at it.
Okay, that's fair. I just think that if we want to go the route of caring about other people and caring about happiness, that we should help other people embrace who they are, who they were born to be, and who they are, and feel happy with that, not this ideology that they want to be
And
somebody
I
else,
would
because that's
argue,
giving a false narrative of happiness.
I would agree with
That's
that, and I would argue that letting people be who they are is being trans. But
right.
I do
I would
have one
just,
quick question for you. Do you
yeah.
believe that people should be able to do what they want, and that the person is a person's best decider of what makes yourself happy is you? Do you think that
I
that's how we should?
think
Do you believe
that
in
in
like the
order,
libertarian mindset of letting people do what they want as long as it doesn't hurt someone else?
I understand the libertarian mindset. I have a lot of friends who are libertarians. But at the same time, there's rules and guidelines that we need to have a functioning society, which is why, I mean, there's other rules in other countries. And granted, we can talk about whether those are best or better or worse than the rules and guidelines in America. But there has to be a set of boundaries and rules that we need to function all together in a huge society.
All right. So basically, where it ends is basically, you believe that there is some people, we should control some people's actions to make themselves do things that are better for themselves. Well, I believe that people's best for themselves is being able to do what they want as long as they don't harm others.
I mean, if we live in a world where we're just letting every single person do whatever they want with no rules and standards, then that's just straight up.
The rules and standards being don't hurt someone else. Of course,
But
I do think that those are the rules and standards.
they're still hurting themselves. See, this is the part where we're going in circles.
Okay, yeah. So I don't think they're hurting themselves, and even if they were, I think they should still be allowed to do it, is basically what I'm saying. So yeah, now that we're going in circles, do you want to move on to the second topic?
Abortion?
Yeah.
Sure.